Okay, everybody, with the change from Julius Caesar and looking at how Rome changes, we're going to see the development of what we call the Roman Empire. Rome ruled by one person, emperor. If you look at Julius Caesar, what he did, you kind of see just where Rome started. Rome started as this little itty bitty thing right here. Okay, we see the Roman Republic expand with the Punic Wars to a little area with little cross hatchets on it. We see what Julius Caesar adds to it. Little triangles with Julius Caesar adds in Gaul and those kind of areas in Asia Minor and Syria and Northern Africa. And by the very end of, the height of the Roman Empire, 117 AD, little blue shaded area, I think it's blue, you know me, I'm colorblind, is what Rome controls. And so you look at how big in, let's say, 600 years, which in all reality is a pretty short time period. Think of the whole history of the world, how much Rome controls. And we'll look next, we can see what impacts Rome has upon us as people yet today. So the question is this: Caesar's dead, stabbed a whole bunch of times by the Senate, dies at the feet of Pompey's statue. Who takes over? Well, the Senate is a logical choice. You have senators, the rich dudes in Rome who are trying to control everything. You have Mark Antony. Mark Antony was Caesar's top general. He was his right-hand man in everything he did. Or do you have relative of Caesar? Now, obviously, if a relative of Caesar takes over, well, it looks like awful like a king, doesn't it? Caesar was not a king. Never said he was a king. Well, let's see what happens. We have Caesar's adopted son, a guy named Octavian. He was actually Caesar's grandnephew. He kind of took him underneath his wing when he was very, very young. Taught him about military, taught him about politics, taught him how to be a successful man. In fact, when he was young, Caesar takes Octavian, sends him across the Mediterranean Sea to what's now modern-day Albania, where he was learning from the greatest teachers that were all related to the ancient Greeks about everything in the world. Well, all of a sudden, while Octavian is off in Albania learning about this military and politics, all those kind of things, word comes to him that Caesar's dead, that Caesar has been assassinated. So he comes to Rome to claim his inheritance. See, Caesar made Octavian his sole heir. He gave him all of his money, all of his houses, all of his power, all that kind of stuff, and said, "You are my heir." Well, Octavian comes to Rome to claim his inheritance. He truly thought that Rome was his inheritance. What he has to do is he has to learn from his mentor, his adopted father, and then is find a way to get power. And what they do is they make a second triumvirate. We talked in our previous notes, the first triumvirate. We talked in our discussion in class. Our first triumvirate was Caesar and Crassus and Pompey. The three of them work together to control power. Octavian does the exact same thing. This guy is 18 years old. This kid is only 2 or 3 years older than you guys are. Okay, doesn't have the power to control the army. Doesn't have a connection. He uses that connection though to Caesar. He says Caesar is being seen as a god. That means that I right here, I am the son of a god. He also paired himself up here with Mark Antony, Caesar's great general, and also a guy named Lepidus over here, who was one of Caesar's deputy consuls at the end. This officially is the end of the Republic. These three rule together as if they are emperors. It's an oligarchy, okay? They use marriage to make it official. They each make sure they marry each other's daughters. Octavian marries one of Mark Antony's daughters, so on and so forth, as a way to make sure that it is all connected, okay? But think about it, ladies and gentlemen. The idea of absolute power can corrupt absolutely, and they start pushing each other on. The first guy to get pushed out is that guy Lepidus. He is accused of treason while putting down a slave revolt. And he said he was trying to get his own power for himself, and so Octavian stripped him of all his rights, his power, sent him away, and we never hear of Lepidus again. Octavian decides to kind of split the place in half. Octavian rules the West. Antony rules the West from Egypt. Oh, and guess who he's hooked up with? The lady named Cleopatra, the former lady who was shacking up with Julius Caesar, now shacking up with Mark Antony, and have created their own little dynasty in Egypt. So we would call it the Age of Augustus. Now, Antony and Octavian fight for control of Rome. So what jealousy is going on here? Octavian ends up defeating Antony's navy in 31 BCE. Antony and Cleopatra escaped Egypt, being chased down by Augustus, who later on as also Octavian. Cornered in, they decided both Antony and Cleopatra decided to commit suicide. Antony falls on his sword. Supposedly Cleopatra jumps into bed with a poisonous snake and allows to bite her, or she takes poison. Who knows? Okay. They do it so they were worried what would happen if Octavian caught them. We still have Caesarion. Now, Caesarion was the son of Caesar and Cleopatra, and technically, could say that he was a rightful heir to Rome. Yeah, Octavian makes sure that little kid is hunted down. Well, not so little anymore, but that kid is hunted down and killed off. That way, to make sure he can't come back and say, I rule Rome. In the end, at age 32, Octavian is the only ruler of Rome. Now, he gave some power to the Senate. It was basically in name only, okay? Basically it was like, you're the Senate. You can make laws. There weren't really much laws they could make. And he was basically a giant dictator, okay? And the Senate actually gave him the name Augustus. Augustus in Latin means revered one. It was always the idea that you give great people great names in Rome. So revered one being that special name. So he has to call himself Caesar Augustus, King Augustus. Now the title he gives himself is not even king. The title is called Imperator, which we are translate to the word emperor. And so Octavian, now called Caesar Augustus, is going to be your first ever emperor of Rome. Now, here's why he could be emperor, okay? First off, he had a big army, all right? Army was 151,000 men who saw him as the son of a god and were loyal to Caesar. He also had his own bodyguards. He has a great bodyguards called the Praetorian Guard. The Praetorian Guard were going to be the emperor's bodyguards. He had 9,000 bodyguards that would make sure that a thug who would follow him everywhere and make sure he was protected. Yeah, he made sure nobody could kill him, get rid of him. He took that big army, conquered all kinds of land, made all kinds of money, and controlled those lands through people he could trust, his deputies, people he trusted to control his different pieces of the empire. And he also made sure some of that money came back, threw some of that back to the people, keep those people happy so there are no problems. Now, he also made sure he had an idea to select a successor. That way there's no worry about, that civil war that happened after Caesar is killed. That's not going to happen here. So he adopts himself a son, just as Caesar adopted him. That person was named Tiberius. Now, at the time of Augustus we have here, we see just how big the Roman Empire is. Controls so much land, so much area, and control this. Now, it leads to an era we call the Pax Romana. Okay, the Pax Romana was a time of peace in Rome. It literally means Roman peace. Look at between 250 and 31 BCE, there have been so many wars we talk about in Rome, and civil wars. In 27 to 180 CE, there's peace in Rome. No wars take place in Europe. No civil wars, no foreign wars. Why? Take a look at this map, ladies and gentlemen, think about why. Who controls everything? It's Rome. Okay, there's no reason for it. And Augustus has put a system in place to make sure that there's always going to be a successor. No fighting over who's going to be controlling areas. No fighting over who's going to take over more land. It's the idea of the Roman peace. A good time when Rome was generally good. Now, after Augustus had a bunch more emperors, and you used to have kids remember all these emperors and learn about them all. Don't worry about it, okay? We're not going to sweat that this time around, okay? A lot of times emperors were grouped by families, okay? The first line were they're called the Julio-Claudian line. They basically were related to Augustus, if you will. And so all emperors that were related either by adoption or by birth to Augustus. Now, there were some great emperors that did really, really, really good things, and some emperors that did really, really bad things. Some of these good emperors, and I asked you to do in the reading that I asked you to do for this weekend as a number 2 that I asked you to complete for your textbook. Talks about some good emperors, some bad emperors. Some of the bad emperor stories we have are stories of guys like Nero, guys like all these emperors that basically do things for themselves and destroy. Other emperors do things that are really good for Rome and create a better Rome. And we'll talk about those more next week. We'll look at when Rome benefits, guys. Thank you very much. Make sure you have your notes done for Monday. We're talking about a couple other topics in class. Thanks a lot, guys.